costs have fallen all over the world, and that Japan is a resource-rich nation now. Now I'd like to call upon Mr. Kimio Yamaka, President, Institute of Energy Strategy, who will be talking about achievements and challenges for renewable energy in Japan and Germany. That will be the first keynote speech.
いただきます。山さん、ウェブサイトでも
So on the website, he has articles as well, and he has latest information about Germany. So we'll be very interested. Please, you have the floor. Thank you very much for the introduction. My name is Yamaka. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Allow me to start. So the topic given to me was to talk about achievements and challenges for renewable energy in Japan and Germany. So it's very difficult to summarize all this in 30 minutes. It's a big task given to me, but I'd like to try to do my best. So today, I'll be talking about the Germans' energy situation and look at Japan's situation as well, and the concept of the best mix is different between Japan and Germany. So we'd like to see how we should understand that, and also the premise of the regional activities in Germany and Japan. We'd like to see the differences between Germany and Japan, what we can learn from Germany. So first, let's look at Germany. So I have summarized what I would like to talk about on this single slide, and now deregulation and also unbundling between transmission and generation, and the trade market also is there, and also there is regulatory bodies set in 2005. So I think that was one of the highlights, which will allow for the infrastructure to be there, and there will be a supervision on a neutral basis, and also phase out of nuclear power by 2020, and also diffusion and promotion of renewable energy. And also we see the FIT-EG as a driver in promoting renewable energy, and also the distributed energy, and also the promotion of economy. So I think strategically we see efforts. So the electricity fees are going up, but there are mechanisms which do not allow for that to impact the overall system. And also the community also is playing a very big role. The FIT system, I think overall, is playing a very important aspect to this. And also there was a review of the renewable energy system, and in Germany, there are some arguments in Japan that maybe there are some shortcomings in German's method, but that's not the case. So we'd like to see how things will go, and I believe that Germany will be taking the initiative in the energy system reform from now on as well. So let's move on to this next slide. This gives you the breakdown of generation and environment and energy targets in Germany. So the renewable energy the ratio is going up in 2050. More than 50% is what the target is. And also, if you look at the upper graph, you will see that the green portion is increasing dramatically. And in 2013, 24% or so is the picture. And FIT has been very successful. So in 2013, if you look at the breakdown here, you see the wind, biomass, solar, etc. shown here. And in the first half of 2014, you see the lowest figure. It's going up to 28.5%. And about the cost. Now coming back to what was explained in the welcome address, you see that there has been a drop here. And in Germany, the Frau Hoha, I see, has announced the LCOE, a long-term forecast. Sorry. Yes. So the blue at the bottom shows wind power, and the yellow in squares you see a gradual drop in PV, and on top of that you see a belt of offshore wind. So wind power costs has gone down quite dramatically. We believe that that will continue. But for offshore and PV, we believe that costs will go down as well. And if you look at the left, right in the middle, you see this vertical bar, and you see natural gas and also brown coal, lignite costs, respectively. And now you see that for part of the solar power, it could be close to that of thermal and be lower than that. And also fossil fuel and thermal, and we believe that the costs will continue to differ. And in the long run, I think renewable energy cost competitiveness will become stronger. We believe that that would be the situation. And it is often discussed about the electricity fees, and this is at the household level. You see that it's going up. Now about half of it is transmission, generation, and also selling the electricity costs, and the upper half represents the tax and also other fees related to renewable energy, so half and half. So on the long run, we believe that for the first half, the electricity cost will go up with generation, but with taxation, exemptions, and also, and we do see value-added tax, etc. In 2013, 5.828 cents is the EG premium. So tariff of PV has gone down to 13 cents, and if you can generate on your own, you can have electricity quite cheaply. So coming back to EG surcharges, 5.27% cents is what we have, and in 2014, 6.26, and it was considered to be quite high. And here's the breakdown for that. If you take a look here, you see for 6.26 cents at the right. The bottom two, the burden related to renewable energy is 2.54 cents is pure support cost, and 1.47 is the fall in the market price of electricity, leading to the increase in the surcharge. And the red shows the industry privileges of taxation, and if it is leveled, the base of the load will go up and per kilowatt, so we believe that this privilege will go down. And the light orange is the equalization of the negative balance from the previous year, adjustments from the previous year. On the long run, we believe that renewable energy costs will become about out of 6.26 cents. And now this is the transition of the electricity market and also renewable energy surcharges. The red is the market prices, and also you see that there's a drop there. And also we see that there is an increase in the surcharge. And market and tariff difference represents that. And also the market price, you see that is dropping. So the market price is going down that represents renewable energy playing a larger portion, and that impact is great. But it's not just that. I believe the coal thermal costs are going down as well, the other aspects as well. So solar power tariff, electricity bills, and also existing generation cost transition. And the blue and green talks about PV and the tariffs. You see that it's going down. And the pink, stepwise, is not going down that dramatically. And it's on a stock accumulated basis. That's why it doesn't go down. But you see that in recent years it's going down. So it's time passes, the stock will go down. And the red line is the domestic electricity price, and yellow is for the industry. Yes, the red is for domestic and yellow is for industry. And we see that PV tariff is going down. It's less than that of the domestic and industry prices. So this is the transition, the current account of major nations. And in Germany, the electricity costs and prices are going up, and there are arguments that that may be influencing the economy. But economy-wise, it's going very well. And if we look at this current account, you see that yellow representing Germany. It's better than China in green, actually. And you see that they're strengthening the industry of Germany. And industry GDP ratio, 28% in Germany, 19% in US. So the energy cost allows for no damage to the industry. So it's not that energy cost is damaging the industry. And this is the comparison of electricity cost by industry. And in January, the EU committee has conducted a hearing, a survey, so to speak, and they have come up with this energy price and cost report. And second from right is Germany, and it's the lowest out of this survey. And now the surcharge of renewable energy is in green at the very top. You see that it's becoming lower. And there are a lot of efforts in inclusion of taxation. And also you see that for transmission and also for taxation, we do see certain exemptions. It's not just that, but in blue, you see the cost related to energy and electricity compared to other nations. Poland is at extreme right. Compared to Poland, you see that it's more or less comparable. So, no, you may wonder, wasn't it high? But it's not the case, it seems. So when we look at the market in Europe, now this shows the breakdown of Germany. In past 3 years, its composition has gone down compared to Switzerland and France. The price in the market is going down, and industry is using a lot of energy and electricity from this market and can get electricity, so they can benefit from the lowest prices available. And on the other hand, regarding renewable energy, the surcharge is exempted. So it seems that they're benefiting from the good aspects of this system. Now, who owns renewable energy in Germany? So this is a diagram that you may often see. And you see here citizens and co-ops representing 47%. So the community often owns that. And now with it, when it's constructed, it will be a tariff which will allow for that to have feasibility. So the infrastructure will be accommodated as well. So you'll be able to have good sites, and also we'll be able to see also institutional and strategic investors also owning a certain degree. And here, this is the changes to from August of this year. This is the change in the system of renewable energy in Germany. So renewable energy in Germany, people, after seeing this, have come to think that maybe there had been problems in the past, leading them to have to review. But about 1/3 is renewable energy already, and the renewable energy being only 2% in Japan, there's quite a difference. Oh, it's very difficult to compare the two nations because the situation is so different. But if you take a look at here, what is often discussed in Japan is about this the cap, the ceiling, with costs going up. If it is to be used too much, we should have a cap. That was for PV and also 52 million kilowatts. And when looking at the economy, so in the case of Japan, it would be 100 million kilowatts in Japan if we look at the difference in GDP, for example. But I think in Japan, this will equivalent to 100 million kilowatts. And here we see the target corridor, and this is the annual target, so to speak. So allowing for the system and also infrastructure to be harmonized with the target. So PV and also 2.4 million to 2.6 million kilowatts, etc. So when you're within the corridor, the adjustment of tariff may be around 1.1% per month. And before August, it was from 2 years ago that for PV there had been discussions, and there has been a dramatic increase, and it was considered that the system could not accommodate that. But in this kind of growth rate, there will be changes in the tariff at this degree. That had been predetermined. This has been announced, and investors have all this information beforehand. So it seems that PV usage is increasing dramatically, and they will be able to judge as to the tariff decline will be lower large. So the investors will be able to make judgment. And also, there are cases when the tariff target corridor and the ceiling concept is misunderstood, but there are two different things. And also coming back to the surcharge, and also their exemptions, the idea is to have less areas of exemption. And it seems that there are more and more self-generation, self-usage, and now there will be more and more increase in that. But it seems that the surcharge will impact that. And also when we see more and more of own generation and there are more exemptions, as a result, per kilowatt hour, the surcharge will continue to go up, and the idea is to level that. And also try to bring in the concept of competition.
And going now on to Japan, we have had this major change in the energy policy since March 11th. And this goes for much broader coverage of the system, and also for distributed system to be introduced in Japan. And so these are some of the changes that we have been seeing in Japan. There's also a discussion towards the deregulation in Japan, to have a full deregulation, giving the consumers the choice of the suppliers, and also being able to be engaged in the business as well. Having said that, there's still not a very transparent view into the future, and we don't have best mixed understanding, or there's still unclarified items in case of Japan. And so these are some of the obstacles that may be there in the road to the deregulation, which means that there needs to be a more broader regional plan, and then there needs to be an exchange prepared in Japan for power trade. And so what is the role of such a broad-scale operation system? And what is going to be the relationship between such a broad and regional scale and that of the utilities, which are regionally based. And there's also a question of how to build a new regulatory body. I understand that there may be some measures being taken towards this end. However, that is still not very clear. And so we should be looking to the examples from Germany to see what can be done. I understand that in Germany there had been an establishment of a regulatory body which will oversee the network management. And so these are some of the measures which will need to be phased in. And I don't know whether that is going to be part of a METI or whether there's going to be a totally separate entity and organization for overseeing this. And also looking at the unbundling of generation and transmission. If we compare against Germany, in case of Germany, there's also separation between transmission and distribution, whereas in case of Japan, these two are still bundled together. And again, when we are talking about unbundling and also deregulation, we have seen that this has already started, for example, with TEPCO. So there would need to be the clear unbundling before the liberalization of the retail market. And then there's also the discussion of exchange or power exchange, which has yet to start in Japan. Now, what about the renewables in Japan? Are we going to be able to see the expansion of the utilization of renewables in Japan? Now, we see ever since March 11th that there has also been some policy changes or in the direction as to how to address this. And there is still a lot of potential in Japan, but there are also various limitations. One for siting, another for access to the transmission grid, and there's also a limitation with regard to her financing. And so we have a very strict and stringent environmental assessment measures requirement for the wind power in Japan. This is the most strict in all the world. And then as for the access to the transmission grid, there's not a clear discussion yet about giving some parties priority to access. In discussing this in Germany or in Europe, these are all been discussed together with the discussion of the FIT. However, in Japan, our discussion centered first on the introduction of the FIT system, and that it is not being associated with the three restraints or constraints that I have just explained. And her financing is another issue in Japan. There would need to be further cooperation from the institutions, the financial institutions towards this end. And as for the positioning of her policy, the basic plan says that in 2020 we should see 13.5%. And I believe that in the next 2 years or so, we will be reaching 13.5% very soon. And so with the agreement from the ruling party, we hope that we will be aiming for a higher target. And so we have already seen the start of this discussion on the review of the feed-in tariff system, because this is understood to be putting an extra burden on the electricity charges. But it is true that we have quite a bit of potential, and perhaps in some cases even better potential than some other countries, such as Germany. And so why is it that in Japan our PV is not as viable here in Japan as in the other parts of the world? And we have seen that with the introduction of the renewables, as far as the numbers are concerned, we do find that these are agreeable numbers, but we have seen that there needs to be certification of the introduction of the FIT system. We have already seen the certification take place for 69 million kilowatts in the 21 months starting from last year for the FIT system. And then looking at the best mix of the power sources, the traditional way of thinking is to have a base load, a middle, and a peak. However, in this age, when we are seeing an increase in the use of the renewables, then we should be looking at using the renewables as a stable supply. And there's also the idea or concept of a variable renewable energies. So there is a stable supply as well as the variable renewable energy. Then there is a difference between the two, which will be regarded as the residual load. And so the next issue will be how do we get the best matching of the residual load, and also how to be able to use the conventional power source in the most flexible manner. And so this is the traditional understanding of the power supply, where you would have the base load of the fossil fuel, etc. Then we have the middle power and also peak. Now we have the PV as well as the wind power as peak power. That is the traditional composition in Japan. But if that is fluctuating, is that not a power source? Is that a minus or negative need? So if we do consider this in light of the traditional energy mix, perhaps these renewables are placed at the top for peak. But if we look at it in this manner, we cannot look at the renewables as the main player of the power source. Now here we have looked at Germany's state. This covers a period of 1 week. And this is a week where there was not much wind and that there was a lot of sunlight. But this shows the breakdown in case of Germany. And here we have taken some data from 50 hertz transmission, who will be speaking today. The top graph shows the load at the top line, and the blue shows the wind power. The small red portion shows the PV, and the blue line at the bottom shows the net export. And now, if we look at both the wind and PV as blue, and then the residual will be the orange portion. In other words, the residual will be deducting wind and solar from the demand. And so it is the capability of the TSOs such as 50 hertz who will be able to do the best matching between the supply and the load. This will be a practice of either taking her from the market or offering it to the market. And so it will be the area where 50 hertz transmission will be able to exercise their capabilities and abilities in making the best match. Now, I'd like to take a look at some of the case studies of her smart grid demonstration project. And I understand that this has been practiced in Germany with full use of IT capabilities with the power. And so this will allow for the adjustment or controlling of the power generation. So they'll be looking at the use of some flexible power sources, and that there will be management at the local level. And I understand that there are 6 such smart grid demonstration projects in place in Germany, but I would like to take one example, which was conducted in Cuxhaven. And so this is an area around the port city of Cuxhaven. And then I'd like to look at the wind power as well as refrigeration storage facility and spa facility. And there are the PV as well as the wind power and refrigerated warehouses. The refrigerated warehouses, if they are controlled well, then they could have some power storage capability. So all of these put together could work as a virtual power plant for the service to prosumers. And there will be adjustment made amongst these different power sources. And so in this example, this constitutes what could be understood as a virtual power plant, including PV as well as wind power. And it also provides power as well as heat. And there's also the regional exchange market created here in the community or in the region. And in this case study, it is a distribution operator which takes on the role here. And that operator will be able to look at the prices at different stages. And so this will allow to procure and also sell the power to the prosumers. And so there will be a good balance between the demand and supply in the region. And so the stakeholders will be working with the market and trading with the market in order to reduce the cost. And this is another project called the Regmod Hearts. And this uses biomass generation. And this is a region aiming to have 100% procurement of power through renewables. And so in this case, they're looking at the power prices, and they also have a cogeneration plant for power generation. And when the market price goes up, then it will generate power. But at the same time, because of cogeneration, they will have some heat generated as well. And so the second graph here shows that the red portion is what's provided by the boiler. And then there's also the thermal storage tank as shown at the very bottom. And so while it is acting as a power generation, it also will be adjusted for the utilization of the heat generated in the region. And so they can work as the heat generator. And then they could also justify the price or the cost of the power generation, and they're aiming for 100% supply through renewables. And so there are gas networks and also the heat networks in position. And then by using this and also by making use of the market, then they are trying to provide these services to the community. And this is the objective that they're having here. And the reason why they're able to do this in Germany is because of the full deregulation as well as the unbundling that is already in place. And they already have the power exchanges as well, and that they have a wide usage already of the renewables, and it is also a balanced system as well. And so that they are able to have a very broad regional coverage. And because of that existing condition in Germany, these demonstration projects are viable. Now, looking at the situation in Japan, the situation is quite different. And so is it that we have to introduce some sort of our storage system or develop such a system that's very unique to Japan in order for us in Japan to be able to put such systems in place? I believe these are some of the discussions that we need to work on. Mr. Yamaka. And so we have already introduced the FIT system since 2 years ago, taking Germany as our teacher. And at the same time, we have seen that we have not progressed very much in the introduction of PV or wind farm. And I think it was a very clear description of the situation here in Japan as well as what's happening in Germany. Thank you.